Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. I know I'm using that line a lot, but a lot of great things happening. Big win. Browns versus Texans. If you listen to the preview, we talked about in that one. The ideal scenario would be to have this team pull away at a point where you could bring DTR in and give them some practice reps, try and massage out the run game a little bit here and there. I don't think that any of us really pictured that kind of day. Flacco going out over 350 yards again. Amari Cooper breaking the single game receiving yardage record, passing the one and only Josh Gordon. It was a fantastic game all around, and we're going to get into all that on the short recap on Christmas Eve. We're throwing this one up We're throwing this one up on YouTube as a little Christmas gift. Usually these are audio only, but seeing as it is the season of giving, we're going to throw that out. So cheers to everyone. If you see this can, you know what's up. And cheers to all of you fine people. So let's start off. Flacco, opening play. 53-yard pass to Amari Cooper, getting inside the 5-yard line, setting yourself up for success, punch it in with Jerome Ford. You could tell immediately Flacco is getting more and more comfortable. And if we can speak on Flacco in terms of his career arc, I think that you've been seeing he still had it. He still had big plays. He broke Cleveland's heart last season with the Jets. But they moved off of him because people said, there's only a certain amount of throws in a system before things come crashing down. And that's why teams don't pick him up long term. He's an older guy, this, that, and the other. But I think that you're seeing Stefanski can open up this offense. He has weapons around him. He has a solid enough O-line, all things considered, with all the injuries. And you're just seeing a great offensive coach putting a quarterback with great arm talent in a position to make plays to great veteran receivers. So I think that's why we're seeing the success, and we haven't seen a drop-off yet. Obviously, the other shoe could drop off the foot. That could absolutely happen. We don't know how long this will truly last. But you're seeing improvements each and every week. That second interception, I'm not putting that on him. The first one, it's a bit of an arm punt. You don't want it, but you're liable to get one per game with a gunslinger like Flacco. So you obviously don't want that on the one deep ball that they threw to Goodwin, but the second one was end of half. You don't have your kicker, which we're going to talk about in a second. Just throw it up, try and make a play. They didn't, so whatever. So realistically, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, and overall putting your team in a position to succeed. If you had your kicker, the score would have been even higher. But then even on 4th down, how many 4th down conversions did we get? I don't have the stats in front of me. These are all live off the dome post game, so I can't really speak to what those official stats were on 4th down. But it's just like Flacco, cool as a cucumber, dropping back. The one throw that he made, I don't even think that this was on 4th down, but he had pressure in his face, and Amari Cooper had that toe tapping catch on the sideline. You're seeing that connection. The ball that he threw to Njoku down the seam for the touchdown. You're seeing it really come to fruition. He's really getting comfortable with these guys. And again, he's just distributing. He's making the reads, and then he's trusting his players to outplay the other playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. So, man, I think a lot of us are watching this game wondering, when's it going to come crashing down? When's it going to come back to earth? But no run game, no problem. Let Flacco air it out. Feed Cooper, feed Njoku. Some other guys made some pretty solid plays. Tillman had a good play here and there. I think he had a 4th down conversion. Elijah Moore popped up in some situations. He had one pretty bad drop that would have, continued to help the Browns marching on later in the game. But just beautiful stuff. We got the bell going on down the street right now. As you can tell, I'm in Cleveland visiting family, if you couldn't tell, in Cleveland. But let's talk about Dustin Hopkins for a second. You had one special teams error that was a real mistake, and that wound up seeing Dustin Hopkins sprinting down the field, and he pulls a hamstring. Hopefully that doesn't affect things, Ooh, sorry, light just went out. If the quality dips for a second, that's why. But that's a big boo-boo. And I know Cleveland fans are so adept to saying, "Oh, only the Browns. We can't get out of it unscathed." It's just the reality of the matter. Like Dustin Hopkins is a bigger guy for a kicker. He's 6'2", 210. He doesn't sprint that often. He's trying to sprint to save a tackle. He pulls a hamstring. I don't think it'll ultimately be that serious. It was just more of a preventative measure on their end saying, "Okay, like we know that this guy's good. We know that we got this game in the bag to some degree. Our defense is playing lights out. Let's not put him at risk of continuing to be hurt." So I hope it was more preventative in terms of him not being able to come back, because you don't want to mess with the soft tissue injury, especially as you're getting ready to head into a playoff run. And that's what this win ultimately set the Browns up for. You've almost guaranteed yourself a playoff spot, whether it's, from the 5 to 7 spot. You got a chance to go into the Jets, and we're going to talk about that more in the recap that will come out Wednesday or Thursday. But I think that not playing Hopkins was more of a preventative measure than anything. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. I think they said they're going to do an MRI. I've had some hamstring injuries during my career, some bad ones, and they really only get worse if you keep trying to play through them. So I think it was a smart move. Saw, Daryl Reuter just being his typical negative self Cleveland hater, being like, "Oh yeah, not going in with a backup kicker plan. That's not a very good idea from the Browns." You always have to find something to be negative about if you're in the Cleveland mainstream media, I guess. But whatever, they were fine. They converted on 4th down. I think that's the faith that they have in this defense. Typically, you'd like to see something, but they have people on the practice roster. They'll call someone up. I think you got to sit Dustin heading into the Thursday nighter, and then you get that long mini bye heading into the final game of the season. And it'll ultimately be fine, I believe. I don't think it's a tear or anything like that. It's probably like a light strain. And then from there, you're going to have some time to be able to recover. Even heading into the Cincinnati game, if you have a playoff spot locked up, if you can win on Thursday night against the Jets, let Hopkins rest, get back to his 100% self, because that kicking game is going to be very crucial going into the playoffs. And then finally, let's touch on the defense here. Lights out. Lights out. Basically the entire game. You bring the subs in, they let up 2 touchdowns and march up and down the field. That was kind of accentuated by messing up on the onside kick, which David Bell doesn't even need to touch that ball because he hit it at about 8.5 yards. It didn't even roll a full 10. You got to clean that up. This is probably the worst special teams game. Looking at the season as a whole, the special teams have been fantastic for the most part, but you let up a kick return touchdown, kicker goes down so you can't kick. The punt game was kind of non-existent because the offense just kept moving the ball for the most part. But then as well, having that boo-boo on an onside kick, those are the things that you got to keep tight, and you really got to hammer them in terms of the film room and practice going forward from that, because all of these games, if you have a lead, teams are going to come charging back, And with that being said, going back to the defense, you take the starters out. I think they're playing a little bit of a thing where they're going to play these deep zones where, hey, let's just have everything get caught in front of us. Let's rally down, let them burn a lot of clock to make these plays and not give up any big plays. However, they let up far too much. And having to bring back that defense out, I think it's good and it's bad. It's good in the sense where Schwartz is saying, hey, like, this isn't going to do this mediocre effort. We need to punch this thing out. We need to knock these guys out when they're on the ropes and continue doing what we're doing. This isn't garbage time where we're going to let them keep chipping away at this lead. If you're out there, you need to play with pride. You need to really unload and play with your full potential. And they didn't do that. So you bring the starters back in and you say, okay, screw it. If you're going to mess around like that, we're going to keep starters in the entirety of the game. And you're not going to get your playing time that you feel that you're owed because the first team guys played so well. That's not the way it works. So I honestly like that they brought those guys in. I know that the announcers were saying, oh, Joe Flacco's back in and the starters on defense are back in. It's because, like, they're starting to get worried that the game's slipping away. I was never worried personally. I don't think Stefanski was. I think it was more of like, okay, if they're going to just mess around like this, don't give them the privilege of being out on the field. We need guys to be playing hard and rallying the whole way. And, that score doesn't tell the story of the game. It was full domination by Cleveland, and all of those plays were just little check downs, throws to the flats, and whatnot that just weren't rallied to aggressively enough to seal the game away. And ultimately, the job gets done. You get out of there with a win, but you would love to see a final perfect finish game, but these guys are human. They're thinking, oh, it's Christmas. We're happy, having a good time on the sideline. You get a little loose. It shouldn't be treated that way. It should be treated as a privilege when you're out on the field. And whoever the backups are, they should be going out and trying to get some great stuff put on tape. So that happens, whatever. Ultimately, you get the win. You got to step it up heading into the Jets, because the Jets are there's not a single game in the NFL that is easy. Even the Arizona game, it's like, I know you're playing whoever that backup quarterback was, but they win the game 27-0, but you can't take those games lightly. You can't treat it as like, oh, it's a walk in the park. Can't be that way. You have to respect all your opponents, and I think going into this Jets game, that's going to be a big point of emphasis, is like, you can't turn your back on these guys. It doesn't matter how strong you feel with your performance. It's got to be the full 60. So it's going to be very exciting to see. And again, we're going to talk about previews for the Jets. We'll probably add that into the recap that comes out on Wednesday, since they're playing on Thursday, or we'll do a separate audio exclusive style podcast as well. But really good stuff. Really good stuff. The run game is obviously a point of concern. We're going to touch on that more in the recap video. But this was a great game. It was honestly a great Christmas gift, and so exciting to see Joe Flacco really making moves like this, and Amari Cooper having his best game as a brand, probably the best game of his career, all things considered, and just making plays, playing with great, strong hands, showing a burst that he hasn't really shown in a long time. This is great stuff. So very happy for this team. Obviously, things to clean up, they will, but just putting together another good one. And that's another win against a good team. Like, this Houston team, even with their backups, have been viable. Even with CJ Stroud out, it's like they played good football. They beat the Titans. I know it's the Titans, but that's a divisional opponent. You go to overtime, you win with Case Keenum. Then you play a team like this and really bring them back down to earth. So, don't take it as they weren't really much of a competition. They were. We were in their house on Christmas Eve, and they went in and got the job done. So very happy for this squad, and so much fun stuff to talk about. I hope that all of you have a very Merry Christmas and just really embrace being around your family today. I know this win will make it a lot sweeter for everyone, but I hope that all of you are very blessed and safe. Happy birthday, Jesus, and we'll talk to you guys soon. So, later.